the Pat McAfee Show has now went to ESPN. He said the biggest news in the history of that program, as he says, in the history of that company was coming. I have a lot of respect for what Pat McAfee's done with his platform, retiring in 2016, having the Thunderdome in Indianapolis. Everything he's done, from the relationship with Aaron Rodgers to getting Chris Ballard on the show. I mean, truly great. So Pat McAfee Show is now headed to ESPN. His 2 years into the 4-year FanDuel deal that he just signed not long ago for 4 years, $120 million. He's now going to go to ESPN, where the show will be on ESPN's YouTube, ESPN's TV channel, and ESPN Plus every Monday through Friday. We don't know the numbers yet, but reportedly he's making over 8 figures or $10 million a year. And I love the Pat McAfee Show. I love the jargon, the content, the guests, the vibe. His goal was really accomplished. He wanted to veer away from mainstream sports media and debates, which caused division in his eyes. It gave a negative vibe. He even said, there might not ever be any debaters out there, like Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless. But what people tried to branch off of from that, I felt like naturally just brought division. And there are healthy debates, but there should also just be positive discussions about sports. And you might not like how vulgar he can be. You might not like how he cusses, but his energy is undeniable. And he has truly built a community on YouTube explicitly and then post-produced on other platforms, and has become so successful. Yes, he's a former player. Yes, he has AJ Hawk on there, who's a former player. Yes, he has Adam Pac-Man Jones on there, who's a former player. We know that. He's got connections. He's using them, and we shouldn't hate. We should absolutely have faith in Pat McAfee, as he's really asking us to, because when I first heard it, I was like, damn, Pat McAfee, real edgy show, respectful, just edgy. ESPN going through all these layoffs. They just laid off 7,000 jobs between ESPN and Disney because, obviously they're the same company. Disney's very family friendly. They are just very G-rated. And again, Pat McAfee Show is very respectful, but it's not G-rated. It's kind of like dudes in the room with, just locker room talk, but it's not nasty. They're just cutting up, again, just jargon, vibes, good energy, but it's all about sports. And that's what Pat McAfee has built. And again, when he first goes to ESPN, I'm just like, this doesn't align, and even Kirk Herbstreit is on the show saying, everyone thinks they're going to take your show and they're just going to put it in this box. Pat McAfee, all the crew agreed. And they're like, but look, that's not going to happen. Pat McAfee and Jimmy Pitaro, the VP of ESPN, said they wanted to make this move happen at the right time. They knew in the past it wasn't the right time. They knew they only wanted to make it happen if it would make money for both companies. And Pat McAfee has told us that nothing is going to change on the show besides how much he swears, because clearly now he's going to be on ESPN and all major, not all major networks, but on ESPN, which is on, like he literally says, every TV channel in America. But we need to give Pat some faith. We really do. Because everyone's assuming that this is going to get screwed up due to ESPN and Disney and not necessarily Pat McAfee. And if we remember, within the last few years recently, ESPN was literally banning players from going on to Pat McAfee Show. They were literally banning them from going on a PMS Live. They just didn't want to have it. They were not about it. They didn't want it happening at all. Now, again, ESPN and Disney just laid off 7,000 people as they make this move. Jimmy Pitaro, ESPN's VP, had a lot of conversations with Pat McAfee. He can tell that he's on it. He can tell that Jimmy Pitaro is serious about this. He is excited about it. Pat McAfee is impressed. He knows it had to be the right timing. And everyone's going to think, oh, he's so big. Now he's finally gotten to this point. He's going to sell out. He's built he has built a platform that is so large, and to think that even he can take it to even larger heights is going to be insane. I mean, we knew that the Pat McAfee Show could have bigger heights than this, but to know that now it is a part of ESPN, I'm happy for Pat. I know Pat knows what he's doing. He's got relationships with ESPN, Fox, DAZN, SiriusXM, Westwood One, FanDuel. The dude's got his name in plenty of hats. His network is large. Your network is literally your net worth. That's why he got the 4-year, $120 million deal with FanDuel. That's why he's probably going to get the same deal. If knowing ESPN, they'll make it better just to really, really, drive it home for him. And I'm not going to, I'm not going to sit here and hate on it for Pat. I was shocked at first. I wasn't necessarily happy. There are still rumors potentially that he could get kind of a whether it's Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, Manning cast type of thing, but with him and his show, which could still be, happen, could still be very legendary. But for him going to ESPN, it felt predictable, like, oh yeah, that's the move, right? But you have to look into everything and really see how it unfolded for Pat. Again, he gave major flowers to Jimmy Pitaro. There's a new content manager at ESPN named Burt Magnus. He said Jimmy Pitaro ensured him the vibe and the delivery of the show wouldn't change. Of course, he just had to change his cussing. And Pat already had his foot in the door at ESPN as well with the College Game Day. And Pat and his crew do everything in house. Here's a big thing that I feel like a lot of people aren't understanding. Pat and his crew do literally everything in house. Yeah, Pat did a very non-Pat thing joining ESPN. He lost a lot of followers. Hit that like button. Thanks, man. Appreciate you. I'm going to get your comments up here on the show. Please make sure to hit that like button like Drew says. And he's tapping in here. Pat did a very non-Pat thing joining ESPN. He will lose a lot of followers, but I believe that the followers he loses will be gained back simply by going to ESPN. His following is probably going to go up a lot. He might lose some, but I think it's going to go up. I think he'll be fine. And honestly, I just believe if he's at 2.2 million right now, and let's say he loses a quarter of his fan base, it just falls to, let's say, 1.5 million, right? Believe by the time, everything gets going with ESPN and YouTube and ESPN Plus and it's all up, we can see Pat McAfee with a 3, 4, 5 million person following. I almost said $5 million, but he's making way more than that. But yeah, this is a lot for the Pat McAfee Show. This is a lot for what's happening with them. And again, Pat and his crew do everything in house. They're massive and they just need production help. Pat said he knows this is a change to change sports media for the better and the future, and he's honored to do so because, again, now instead of just YouTube, he'll now be on ESPN's YouTube, ESPN's channel on TV, and ESPN Plus every Monday through Friday for 3 hours like he's doing now. Some say turning down the deal would have changed sports media more than joining would have, but it's really all about perspective. Of course, if he takes the deal, he's potentially going to change sports media because he's built such a platform to where now businesses in life is all about adjusting. It's all about adapting. ESPN's going through stuff right now, clearly laying off 7,000 people. They could be looking for a change in vibe. They could be looking for a change in style, in scenery, and brand awareness by starting that with Pat McAfee. So if that does happen, I think Pat McAfee is one of the perfect or most well-rounded candidates to take this position, to elevate to this point with ESPN, to make it to where if shows like me ever wanted to have a chance to get on there, which I'd love to stay independent forever. I'd love to bring people in and have sponsors, but still be me, fully believe in, having your own business and all. That should be possible. There should be networks out there like Blue Wire who bring podcasts on and really, shout out Pick a Side, shout out Stay Hot Podcast. There's podcast networks like The Volume, like Colin Cowherd's come out with now. He's able to bring on other podcasts or give them exposure because people like The Volume in general because of Colin. So it's just going to be a lot of growth for Pat McAfee. And of course, you could say, oh, he would have done more good if he would have turned it down. Why? Just because it's ESPN? I mean, if you turn down any big company, I think that's going to show anything. I just think a lot of feelings are tied up inside ESPN, what they used to be or what they maybe are now. And people just aren't having it. But I'm happy for Pat McAfee. I trust him. He has clearly built a platform the way he has. He's gotten the relationships and the networking and the connections the way he has. He's making the money for a reason because he knows how to do it. And I think he's going to do great things at ESPN. I'm happy for you, Pat. My biggest dreams is for you to only hopefully thinking about seeing this video, but just know you got a big fan out there, bro. I love your vibe. I love your jargon. I love everything you do on the show, man. And it keeps people like me going. It keeps people that do shows every day. Let us take ourselves a little less seriously. And I'm rooting for you, man. I'm still right here in the fan base. Ooh, and that was like the first water break of the show. Real quick here before we move off this topic. Do you think people are mad at him because he got paid and they living paycheck by paycheck? That's very possible, man. People always say in life, people will treat you as the way people treat others is a reflection of how they feel about themselves. And I firmly believe, again, if Pat goes to FS1, I think he's got a lot more fans. I think he's got not even a lot more fans, but I think he's got a lot more positive feedback. Pat goes to ESPN, And it's all about what ESPN's done. It's all about their past. It's all about how they're mainstream and this, that, and the third. And that's the worry, right? Is Pat's main vibe was, I don't want to be mainstream. I want to turn away from the Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless type of debates. And I just want to bring literally happy, positive, uplifting conversations about sports. We can still debate. We can still have fun. We can still cut up. Let's just be respectful. And let's not debate heavily to drive a division between people. But Drew, that is very possible, man. Some people just don't like seeing others do well, don't like seeing others elevate. And unfortunately, those are just people that you do have to get out of your life.